on the internet with your host, Troy Geary, the man who seems to go to every sporting event, and Dave Stevens, born without legs, but won 7 Emmys and played college football and minor league baseball. Throw in Will Stein wherever Will Stein is, and you've got a heck of a show. It's the Geary, Stein, and Stevens Show. Faux shizzle.
All right, everybody, welcome back here to the Geary, Stein, and Stevens Show on Radio Row as we wrap up our final day here at this venue. And if you guys are planning to maybe wager on the game or look into what you think who might win, well, we've got an ESPN NFL insider here. He's not here to help you with your betting, but he is.
I'm not allowed to give betting advice. That's a company rule.
Absolutely.
All this is for entertainment purposes only.
So, Dan, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Everybody looks to you every Sunday. I need that tidbit. I need that thing, that edge. I mean, how did you get started in this business where you've become so successful?
I started out in newspapers. I was a baseball writer. I started out at the Palm Beach Post and covering the Florida Marlins. And actually, I started there as an intern. I got a job off the internship. So I was always a reporter and writer. Ended up at the Newark Star-Ledger for years covering baseball, Yankees, and some Mets. And, ended up taking a buyout. And the job I was able to get after that was an NFL job at AOL Fan House. And then it kind of led me in various ways to ESPN. So, always a reporter at heart. So, like, even once it started being more of a TV job, it's always been sort of about what can I bring to it, which is information. I didn't play pro football. I'm not, going to break down film. But what I can do, what my sort of contribution, like when I'm on those shows, Get Up and everything, is that, what have I learned? How can I illuminate what's going on behind the scenes for people? So, but yeah, since I was 22 years old, covering high school sports and other things in South Florida, trying to get a job.
It's been funny to watch the evolution of, because everything is instant. We need to have everything as soon as, instantly, our news instantly. And Chris Berman would sit in the office on Sunday morning, and the San Diego Chargers would call him, and the Buffalo Bills, Scott Berchtold, would call them and give them the inside information. And it's been amazing to see that the league trusts you. A lot of these owners and people that are in these organizations trust you,
well, hopefully,
because they know you tell the truth.
I think it's also about being fair, right? Like if you can be critical of someone, but if you're doing it in a way that is fair, it's hard for them, even if they get mad, to stay mad. So I think it's I wasn't a journalism major in college. I went to Georgetown. We didn't have that. So after college, there's a place in St. Petersburg, Florida called the Poynter Institute for Media Studies. And they had a 6-week program that was like a crash course journalism program for people that hadn't had journalism majors in college. It just graduated. So there was some pretty cool, like that place owned the St. Petersburg Times, which had a lot of sort of Pulitzer Prize winning journalists that would come and talk to us. So really a lot of hardcore training in that period. And then in Palm Beach, I was around great people that really emphasized, how to make the extra phone call, right? The value of like asking one more question, all that kind of. So I had some really good training early in my career on sort of trying to do it the right way. And I hopefully I've carried that forward.
You wrote a couple of books. Can I talk about them?
If you want.
Where can people find them? I know you're a good writer, so
Thank you.
I enjoy your stuff. Just want to share that information.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it is. I always wanted to write a novel, and I just sort of did one. It was one of the years I was covering the Yankees. One of the years I was covering the Yankees, 2002, and they got knocked out in the first round, which at the time was shocking, right? Because they had won. Oh, it was 2001. I'm sorry, they got knocked out in the first round in 2001 by the. No, 2002. I'm sorry, I got it all wrong. By the Anaheim Angels, who ended up winning the World Series. So I had this month free. Right, like where I was normally on the road covering baseball because I was covering the Yankees that were in the playoffs all the time. So I just wrote. I would write. No kids at that time, so I'd write until 5 a.m. and sleep till noon. Right, like whenever it was. So I got the manuscript done and then shopped it around to agents and finally found one that liked it and got it published. And it was a pretty cool feeling to see that book on a shelf in the bookstore the first time. It didn't sell. It did get me a second book deal, and that one didn't really sell either, but really cool experience and something I'm really glad to be able to say I did.
Dan, I want to ask you, because you have such good connections, who were your role models at ESPN? I got to work with Mort. I got to see the best. I mean, how do you learn how to get these, good relationships around the league?
At ESPN, Mort was a huge help. Like he was when I started doing TV there, it was NFL Insiders was the show, and he was involved in that. And he was always a great sounding board. Like if I was close on a story, I could call him and he could maybe help get it over the finish line. But more often than not, it was about, well, have you tried calling this guy, right? and kind of help you get yourself to the finish line. So yeah, it just honestly, it was. I really think that by the time I got to ESPN, like as a reporter, I had on the job training in my previous places that I kind of carried into that. But I would definitely say Mort was a mentor type for all of us who came to ESPN around that time and probably long before.
And I got to ask, because you get such good stuff and we see it every Sunday and during the week. Have you ever had a situation where like maybe only one or two people knew and they said, well, one of those guys must be the source, and they're calling you, where did you find this out? Who told you this? Kind of like that.
Yes, there are teams that will spend a lot of time on that. It always kind of surprises me a little bit, like trying to find their leak. I guess they want to control the flow of information, but yes, there are times when, well, this couldn't have come from me. It could only come from me or this other person. Like all you can do is like, look, it's a stock line. Like I am never going to tell you who my confidential source is. Like it's not personal. Like I'm sorry you're upset, but that's just not going to happen.
You
because
credential threats or pull your things?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think I ever remember that happening. Sometimes you get yelled at, especially baseball. Baseball, you're on the team every single day, right? I mean, you just like I covered Jim Leland, and there were just days where he was just in a mood, right? And you'd walk into his office, and like he had a third base coach who was like his best friend named Rich Donnelly, and Donnelly was great because he would intercept you on the way to the manager's office and be like, "Hey, he's mad at you today." And I'm like, what did I do? I don't know, but he's mad at you today. You're going to get yelled at. Just a heads up. And I always appreciated that.
And now he's in the Hall of Fame. So
yeah, well, he was a great manager.
Yellowest teeth I've ever seen in baseball.
Well, he worked on those. He did. It was a lot of cigarettes.
So what has been your, I would say, biggest scoop, biggest get where everybody else said, holy crap, how did he get that? And then you've got NFL Network reporting. Everybody has to give you the attribution.
It doesn't work like that anymore is the problem, right? Because everybody gets it 5 minutes later. Like when you say scoop, I go back to the newspaper days, right? When you could, hear the Marlins are signing whoever, Alex Fernandez, right? And then you had that solo and it dropped on your competitor's doorstep and they had to sit with it for a whole day. There was no place to put it other than in the next day's paper. That was a scoop. But yeah, I mean, I think we've had some hits, especially I think in the coaching cycle over the years. I think, it's hard to remember specifically. I mean, there's some, you remember your clean hits. I remember I believe I had Sean McDermott to the Bills when he got that job. Just kind of trying to sort through it. I don't know. I mean, it's tough now. Scoop is a different thing because there's a difference between like, oh, I was the first one to report it, and then like I got it as a favor, and the team announced it 5 minutes later. Versus I found out something people didn't want out there, right? Right. As opposed to, I think that's the cool stuff. And for me, I think the reporting is kind of morphed into, you talk about Sunday mornings. What can I illuminate behind the scenes? Can I tell a story about what happened in practice this week that set this team up for this particular game? That kind of thing. I feel like there's a lot of value in that to the viewer.
Well, you've done it for so long now. I mean, where do you want to be 5-10 years from now?
I have 2 kids in college. So 5 years from now, I would like to, still be employed and able to pay tuitions.
Former ESPN employees here.
There sure are. It's no. I mean, you can't. Like I ran into Trey Wingo on the street yesterday. Like it's Darren Woodson, who I used to do NFL Live with. He was around. So I haven't thought about it because honestly, Dave, if you went back 10, 12 years. And told me at that age, here's what's about to happen, I would have laughed at you. I was a newspaper writer. I had never thought about football. I never thought about TV. I mean, this has all come so unexpectedly that I've kind of become. I'm kind of in a position where I don't know what's going to happen next. Like the best thing is just to be as prepared as possible for it. and trust that, hopefully it'll be good stuff. But no, I'm dead serious. I do not have I've reached a point in my career. There's certain specific things I like to do that maybe I'd like to do more of or try. I love it when they let me host the show. That's like a different kind of rush. I would do more of that if they gave me those opportunities. But yeah, I guess the word is probably blessed.
What do you kind of expect? What are the big storylines in your opinion? And let's talk about that.
Can the Chiefs stop Saquon Barkley? Right, like no one has. I feel like if you can just keep him from running for a 60-yard touchdown, you have a chance, right? the Commanders and the Rams, second and third level tackling was non-existent. So can the Chiefs do that? Does Steve Spagnuolo have a plan cooked up for slowing him down, at least containing him? Keeping him from breaking off the big explosive run. I think that's kind of the big storyline heading into the game. But just being around the teams this week, I'm fascinated by the way the Chiefs' offense has evolved throughout the year, especially their wide receiver core. Right, the rookie Xavier Worthy has really ascended throughout the season. And I was talking to some of their coaches, and they told me that DeAndre Hopkins, who they got in a trade in late October, and hasn't really caught many passes for them, has been an extra coach that he will gather with Worthy and the other receivers on the sideline during games or during practices and sort of school them on, okay, you're running this route perfect, but because this corner is playing you this way and getting help from here, you need to actually run it this way instead. And the coaches are marveling at the way he communicates it, and they really feel like he's been a huge part of why that wide receiver group has played so well over the second half of the season, even though he hasn't been a massive part of it. So interested to see the Chiefs offense, which I think is in a lot better shape than it was this time last year.
You wish the Eagles would have A.J. Brown kind of in that role instead of how he has been perceived of, moaning, bitching.
Well, he had the one
on the sideline.
Yeah, he had the one. I think if you got DeAndre Hopkins in an honest moment, he would tell you, I sure would love to be catching more passes. But I just found it fascinating that's the role he's taken on, and I don't think the Chiefs were expecting it when they traded for him.
I've watched your evolution. We worked together, for 3 or 4 years, and I watched how uncomfortable you were becoming on air at the time and how you've grown. And I know that they now kind of make fun of you and have fun with you. It's like you have fun a little bit more. You've loosened up. I mean, do you still think they pick on you sometimes because they think you're so serious?
I don't think so. I think especially Get Up has been a show where it's been a lot easier to kind of be yourself and being around those same guys. Jeff Saturday, Dominique Foxworth. I mean, I legitimately love those guys like that. It's so cool to do TV with folks like Ryan Clark was starting at ESPN when he was still a player, and I remember around the same time I was starting. So having seen his evolution and kind of Louis Riddick and I started at the same time on NFL Insider. So I feel like I've grown into the role with some of these people, and that's pretty special. It is. It's funny because I had no broadcast training. When I went to AOL, you remember Josh Bernstein?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I went to AOL Fan House, they were ramping up their operation, hiring experienced writers. They wanted to do a video product. They hired Josh to oversee it. And they also hired Steve Phillips, who had left ESPN under, unfortunate circumstances at the time. So what Josh created was this baseball show with me and Steve in the little TV studio in Lower Manhattan, where I was the host and he was the analyst. And it was the first time anybody had put me in a host role. And he taught me a lot about that. Also, how to be on TV and other roles as well. He was a mentor of mine for that couple-year period we worked together. So, but other than that, it's been on the job training and what, at ESPN, like there are times where they would give you, pointers, but a lot of times with a lot of places, the best feedback is just they keep asking you to do it.
Did you sit with Wild Hack at all or any of those guys or
Who
storyteller guy, John?
Oh, yes. Sawatsky.
Swatsky, yeah.
The interview guy.
Yeah.
That stuff was gold. He used to give those seminars on interviewing, and there's still stuff that lives in my brain that he told me that I use over and over and over again. So yeah, those were good. They're starting to beef that section up a little bit again, like with a little more on-air coaching and stuff, especially because our NFL Nation reporters that don't all have TV backgrounds, and they're putting them on TV more and more. So it's good because, some of those guys are really hungry for that kind of feedback.
And you've watched the evolution of having a satellite truck and cables and cameras to now just bringing one thing, setting it up on
my phone on a tripod with a light attached to it. Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. All right, before we let you go, young people out there that would like to learn how to do your job, is there still a way to do it, or is there just too many influencers? Because the league seems to be kind of catering to the younger generation.
I feel like I'm the only one here who doesn't have somebody following them around with a camera. It makes me feel old. The advice I like to give young people trying to break into this business, whether you're going to write, whether you're going to be on camera, whether you're going to do both, whether you're going to do radio, your information is going to be the key. If you will be more confident on air, if you trust your information, your reporting, as it were, and that will be. There's so much stuff out there. Right? What can you deliver that other people can't? Why should they go to you? And there's something to be said for being entertaining. Obviously, there's no question about it. But what can really differentiate a young person trying to break into this industry is can you get good information out there and tell people something they don't already know?
All right, Dan Graziano, great spending a little time with
My
you.
pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Sunday?
I'll be in the press box.
All right.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see you.
I'll be back to my roots as a writer. Be writing a game story. So, yeah.
Yeah, you have any interest in either team with childhood, any kind of thing like
No,
that?
I don't. I have no rooting interest in this game.
You're Switzerland.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I like a little history because we covered the Patriots for so long. Might be nice if we could talk about a three-peat, but I got no.
I do like
wants the Eagles, and I like history. So
I do like seeing things that have never happened before. I do like that. That's true. But yeah, it'll be great either way.
Thanks, Dan, for being a part of it. You're watching Geary, Stan, and Stevens. The hits keep coming. We got a couple more guests.